Good morning, everybody. So in today's video, we're going to chop up some stuff for the freezer that I've harvested. So some zucchinis, some kale, some bok choy. I'm going to make a couple chicken marinades. Well, I'm not going to make them. I bought some, so I'm going to use these. And then we're going to make a homemade biscuit recipe. That's what we're doing in this video. Okay, so I want to start by, I've already washed all of these vegetables when I harvested them. So I want to start by chopping these up. So my family isn't huge fans of kale or zucchini, but I like to have a little bit of it in the freezer to put in soup and stuff like that. They don't tend to notice when I put it in soup and it's healthy. So that's how I tend to save it. So I try to cut it in really small bite-sized pieces is what I'm meaning to say, especially the zucchini. they will notice if it's bigger than like a size of a dime. So I think the kale they wouldn't notice as much because I do use a lot of spinach, so they'd probably think it was just spinach. So I'm going to be freezing it like this as it comes out of the garden. I'm going to use my reusable freezer bags for this. I was going to vacuum seal some of them, but I think I'm just going to use my reusable freezer bags. Easier to take out what I want when I need it. I can use small amounts at a time. And they're the perfect size. I have all different sizes of these. They're great. Okay, let's do the zucchini. So for the zucchini, I like picking them when they're nice and small like this. They have less seeds and they are tastier. So I am going to dice these into really small cubes, triangles, whichever. I find they're more palatable when I put them in soup. That's mainly what I use these for. I do have some shredded in the freezer from last year still, because like I said, we're not huge zucchini fans. And I'm going to probably use that for a zucchini loaf of some kind. So I'm just going to chop these up. Some of these are too big. I like to try and hide certain things that my family doesn't like into food because it's healthy for them. See, there's hardly any seeds into these. They're perfect. I was thinking about also trying a few new recipes with zucchini to see if, I can make them taste a little better. I think what I don't like personally about zucchini too much is the texture. So this is why I tend to like to cube it. When it's cooked, it's got like a spongy texture that I don't love. But I do try to grow, this year I only grew one zucchini plant for this exact reason, because I knew I would get just enough for us to keep for soup and stuff. If you guys have any really good zucchini recipes, I am all ears. I'm willing to try. I know zucchini is really healthy and it can be quite abundant in the garden. So I'm willing to try any new recipes if you guys have them. Any suggestions to make them taste better. I do have a couple more zucchinis in the garden that are growing, so this bag will be full by time winter hits. Okay, let's do the kale. Or no, bok choy. Not kale. I washed these right away so they didn't wilt. They were starting to bolt when I harvested them, so it was necessary for me to get it out of the garden right away. So bok choy is something that I like to use in stir fries a lot. As I've mentioned previously, my fiance is Asian, so we do go through quite a bit of bok choy. Soup, stir fry, a whole bunch of stuff. wonton soup. I like making pot sticker soup as well. Basically, it's gyoza dumplings into like a wonton soup mix. Works great. So I like to be able to have this. Got like little shards of stuff on it. I like trying to get to stuff I harvest out of the garden right away. I don't like to wait till it, you know, it goes bad or whatever. That's such a waste of my time when I've spent all this time harvesting and growing and taking care of the plants, and I like to try and make sure I get everything out of them. There we go. Whole big bag of bok choy. I have, at the moment, I think I planted too many cucumber plants. We have, I think, 5 cucumbers in the fridge right now that I still need to use for something. I'm thinking about possibly just making a cucumber salad this week for one of our dinners. I think it's a German cucumber salad. My grandma used to make it all the time. Basically, it's cucumber, mayonnaise, dill, and I think a splash of vinegar. I think that's what it is. Okay, so I'm moving on to the chicken. Oh, I need to get some Ziplocs. As I've mentioned previously, I like to put my marinades into actual Ziplocs, not my reusable ones. Something about the raw meat in my reusable ones, just kind of not loving that. So we're going to do this. My biscuit recipe that we're going to make after this is pretty fast, so that's why I wanted to add a little bit of some of my harvesting into this video. I don't always show all my harvest stuff, so I've harvested lots of stuff from the garden already. My garden is quite abundant right now. I'm really happy about it. My tomatoes are growing like crazy. I am super excited about my tomatoes. I have grown tomatoes before, but never to this level of success. So I'm very happy about it. These are just boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I'm going to pour marinades on top. Normally I make homemade marinades, but when I was in the grocery store, I seen a few that looked delicious. So I wanted to try them, and I like to do that sometimes where I'll buy a marinade and then I'll look at the ingredients and see if I can make it. I like homemade more than anything, so I bought, these are both President's Choice marinades. This one's a lemon and garlic, and this one's garlic and herb. The garlic and herb one I think I could probably make fairly easily, but for today, for these purposes, we're going to do this. I'm going to taste this because I have a habit of doing this. I might add something to it if I don't quite like the taste right. Yeah, like see, this one is really good, but I think it needs a little bit of brown sugar. So let me get the brown sugar. Marinades that I end up buying usually need brown sugar. So I'm going to just pour it right in. So this one says it has molasses, white vinegar, salt, canola oil, garlic, seasonings and herbs, soy sauce, water, soybeans, dried garlic, mustard, dried mustard powder, lemon juice, dried onion, and dried red bell pepper. I think I could make this. We'll see. For now, we're going to use the bottom one. So I also make an Italian brown sugar marinade, and it's delicious. And this is pretty much the same thing. You use like an Italian dressing and you add brown sugar to it. It's really good together. Especially if you're not good at cooking, that's pretty easy to slap together. Okay. So this is the lemon and garlic. Let's taste this one. I have a feeling this is going to be very, very tart. We'll see. Yep. Very tart. Oh my gosh. I think this one's going to taste delicious on the barbecue though. This would actually taste really, really good with shrimp. Delicious with shrimp, I think. I'm going to save it. I might use some on shrimp. So I'm going to add some brown sugar to this one too. Might need a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of pepper to each bag. The lemon garlic one I think I could probably make too. So maybe next time when we do some freezer meals, which we are going to do soon, I have one freezer meal left in the freezer. So next time we make some freezer meals, we'll make some homemade marinades. I'm just mixing some of the brown sugar in with it. Oh, I forgot to mark these. I just like to mark what they are when I packaged it. I like to do that mainly so I know which ones to use first. These usually get used pretty quickly though, so I'm not too worried about that. Okay. But like I was saying previously, I do tend to like to do that. Sometimes I'll buy a marinade from the store and I'll either embellish it, fix it a little bit, or I'll use it as inspiration to make a new homemade marinade that I haven't tried before. I do that a lot actually. And then I'll come up with my own recipe of what I would like to try as a new homemade marinade. Okay. I think that one's good. Put all the air. I do really like using my food saver for meat, but there's something about putting the marinades into my reusable ones that I can't. I think in my brain, I think that the meat's going to stick to the silicone or something. I don't know. But for peace of mind, I just use these regular ones. Food saver, I like using for regular meat. The marinades, you can't really use them for that because of the juice. Okay, so we've got a bag of bok choy, some zucchini, one of probably a couple. Same with the kale. I have lots of kale left to harvest still. And 2 marinades. Now let's move on to making some homemade biscuits. Okay. Had to take a break for a minute. I scraped my hand on a box. Okay, so I've got my bowl here. I am going to double this recipe because I like cutting them really thick. So this is my biscuit recipe. Okay, so we need 4 cups of flour. So this recipe started out as my mother's recipe, and then I've embellished it over the years, made it better. So I add a little bit more salt and a little bit more butter to this recipe for more flavor. I found that the recipe didn't have enough flavor. Okay, so this is double the recipe, remember. So that was 4 cups of flour. 9 teaspoons of baking powder. I also add an extra one, so 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I add a 10th teaspoon to this because I find that the biscuits were a little too dense, and if you add an extra teaspoon of baking powder to it, it makes them a little fluffier. So I also add twice the amount of salt and twice the amount of butter. Well, not twice the amount, about half the amount. Okay, so double the recipe for salt is 1 teaspoon altogether, and then I add an extra half a teaspoon. It gives the biscuits a little bit better flavor. So this one calls for 3 tablespoons of butter per recipe, so that's 6 because we're doubling. And I think I'm going to add probably 8. More butter tends to make the biscuits a little bit more flavorful. I don't like them to be too bland, and I find the recipe was a little bland. I'm eyeballing this, which is perfectly fine for this recipe. 6. 7. 8. Okay. Okay, now let's mix this together with our hands. I mix this together kind of like I would do a pie dough. Just crumbling it together into little beads with the flour and the baking powder and the salt. I try not to break them up too small, probably about the size of pea, maybe a little bit bigger. So it looks like that. Okay, let me wash my hands for just a sec so I can pour the milk nicely. Okay, so we need, my hands are all clean now, 2 cups of milk, approximately, sometimes a little less. I usually embellish this recipe according to texture, so, well, not embellish it, but make sure it's good. Checking the texture is usually how I mean. Okay, so I'm going to pour a little bit in at a time. Two cups was double the recipe, by the way. One of the keys to this recipe is not over mixing it, but you do want it to all to be incorporated really nice. I've made this recipe a million times and over the years just added what I think would be better for the recipe. I find using milk with this recipe adds a really nice flavor and texture to the biscuits. I know lots of people use water. I think milk's better. Okay, we are not going to need the rest of the milk. I can tell already the texture is a little wet, which is good. We don't want it to be too dry, otherwise they won't raise right. So let's take this out. I'm I'm just going to mix it a couple more times and then we'll start cutting them. I do not use a rolling pin for these. I don't like them to be too flat. Okay, so I think that's good. So what I'm going to do is I flatten it out to about 3/4 to an inch thick, maybe even a little thicker. I like them really nice and thick, and they puff up really nice when you do cut the dough thicker. Okay, got my cookie cutters here. Let's wash my hands again. I just didn't want to get dough all over my cookie cutters here. I do have these linked on my description page if you want to look at them. I linked where I bought them on Amazon. I get nothing for that, just let you guys know where I got them from. Okay, so I'm going to spread these out just a little bit more. And then I'm just going to start cutting them. And then I'm just going to start laying them out on my cookie sheet here. These don't really spread too much. They do puff up though. Biscuits is one of the main reasons why I go through so much jam in my house. My children and me as well love eating them with jam. My fiance prefers with just butter. But raspberry and strawberry jam, this is their favorite way to eat it with, is with biscuits. So biscuits are toast. I like having biscuits for breakfast, or like if I'm eating soup or something. I like making biscuits for soup too. Try to use all of this here. Just make a little tiny one there. Okay, now I'm going to bake these in the oven until they get like a light golden brown on top and they've puffed up, and I will show you when they come out of the oven. So I realized at the last second I forgot to add sugar to the recipe. So I took them all off the pan before I stuck them in the oven here, and I'm just mixing in the sugar. The sugar is 1 teaspoon per recipe, so 2 teaspoons. Almost forgot. Okay, now I'm just going to cut them again. Almost put them in the oven, and then I'm like, I went to go put things away, and I was like, I didn't put sugar in this. I realized like right away. Okay. So it's fine, I added it, and we'll just recut them. At least I noticed before they started baking. It wouldn't have been as flavorful if I hadn't have noticed. They would have been a little bland. You can make these as big as you like. I like to use this medium-sized ring. So yes, important, don't forget the sugar. I made these once and forgot the salt. They did not taste great. Food needs to have flavoring. Oh, I made these ones a little bit thicker. That's okay. Okay, so now I'm going to bake them at 350, probably for 15 minutes. I'll tell you when they come out how much I baked them for. Okay, so I just took them out of the oven. This is what they look like. They're a little bit brown on top. You can see how they raised a bit. If you want them to raise a little more, you can add a little bit more baking powder, but this is pretty good. I think I ended up cooking them for about 25 minutes. So guys, this is where I'm ending the video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.